Hello, how we doing? Thanks for joining me. What's going on, coin traders? Looking at ICP, Internet Computer, ICP on that ticker. Very nice setup going on right now, and this was kind of anticipated with this current setup. In fact, last night I did make a tweet that ICP was just about to rip it, and so we're going to talk about why here in the show today and all about this nice chart setup. So again, if you're not following me here over on Twitter or X at coin_trades is the handle. Definitely drop me a follow. Looking forward to chatting with everyone about all things crypto and ICP. But yeah, so back to this chart. Now, if we go ahead and zoom out here, look at the daily chart, and one of the things about it is that we can kind of look at the current picture, but if we actually go ahead and invert this chart, you know that it kind of looks overall bearish, right? So obviously inverse of bearish would be bullish. So if we go ahead and invert the chart again, nice bullish chart setup. But what about it specifically? Well, I want to note that right now, big break of both of these big resistance points that we had overhead. That's one. Obviously, two, we're getting a nice breakout candle, but prior to that, we were setting up very nice with a low, a nice upside V-shaped recovery. A little bit of a pullback. Obviously, we would love to have the close on top of these exponential moving averages, but if we actually do flip over to the two-day chart, got a lot more support from those, especially as we are rolling into a nice bullish formation right now. So, about to get the nice cross here of 26 over the 50 for that final confirmation. And especially with a nice bullish breakout after four kind of more or less smallish body of all of these candles. And so in fact, the previous 4 days of trading, actually the bodies fit with inside one bearish sell-off day. But because we were actually defending a very nice big support and looking left, big resistance. So we know that this is a very effective level that we were looking at. So after breaking this big resistance point, breaking through it, backtesting and confirming this level as support is just extremely nice to see, and obviously a hugely bullish signal, especially with a lot more of this follow through. Now, if we go ahead and zoom out too, and we are still on the two-day chart, looking at all this volume here down on the bottom of the chart compared to pretty much where we have been looking at for bullish volume here compared to back when we were looking at the nice spring rally come in. And so as you can see, not necessarily that much price action and movement, but we do have a lot of volume coming in. So pretty much we're confirming that we are seeing a lot of upside momentum, and pretty much that's going to lead to a lot of upside direction, because after all of this basically minimal volume in comparison, looking at a pullback, but obviously stabilized in kind of a nice little breakout happening right now. And so if we do want to actually look at this in terms of a trend a little bit more, we were looking at very big and defined resistance levels, and this actually extends up into a support level as well. So if we look at this trend line extended all the way back up here, we can just see how supportive it was here on this bounce attempt, and ultimately ended up just kind of flipping into a resistance point, and then now on the current two-day candle. Very nice bullish break above that. So we'd love to still see it maintain. And so obviously on the support side too as well, very nice increasing levels of closing support here for this two-day chart. So big period of support kicking off. Support. Huge, nice support level. And obviously with this downtrend line, very nice breakout to the upside happening right now with the nice volume confirmation. So a lot of great things working in favor for the ICP chart right now. And so it's going to be great to see if we can actually stomp some of these upside resistances, because we're getting close to that level where we're actually going to need to see a lot more fall through, because we're going to have a lot of upside resistance. So looking at that, actually, we are looking at an upside resistance of about 1044 close. And looking left here, we can see that that was a big period of resistance. Looking left even farther, big period of support after we broke it, and then big period of resistance here before breaking through and continuing the upside trend here earlier in the year. So that's going to be our next current upside resistance that we need to see the break above. On top of that, we're pretty much going to be looking forward up to the 1160 level. And this was a very huge supportive level pretty much the whole time until about June, when we actually did see a lot more of that bearish downside action. So big support across this 1160 level. So that does mean, theoretically anyway, from a technical standpoint, that this is going to be resistive as well. So plenty big resistive points coming overhead. But the good news is that if we do continue to see more of this nice bullish volume coming in, we should actually expect a lot more upside being able to break through these zones. And because we have confirmed it multiple times as support and resistance, we know that we are going to be looking at a very nice chart setup that's going to confirm this overall zone as a very nice support to the upside and allow us to continue higher, especially after it does get established as a longer term supportive region. So now, do you want to turn on the VPVR volume profile visible range? So right now, broken above big period of mass, kind of in this gap here. So like we talked about big zones, and we're pretty much going to see price more or less rally up to test about the 1140 resistance first here. But once we get up to that, we're actually going to see a lot of resistance pretty much that whole way to the upside past 1140, pretty much up until about the $14 level. So overall, depending on what happens with the rest of the crypto space, because we have seen a big impact with altcoins and crypto based off of where we actually see other altcoins despite independent chart setups and things like that. So realistically, what we could see happen is a nice upside rally, pretty much to test around the $13 to $14 level. And then that's where we're going to get a little bit more consolidation as well. Hopefully it's not going to be as long and drawn out as this period where we were sitting in from the end of December, pretty much till about June, just more or less flat and sideways, kind of like what we had in this overall level from about June until recently. So pretty big periods, mostly this whole year of just boredom for internet computer here, but a lot of great things shaping up now. And I do want to flip over into the weekly chart because we're looking at a very nice weekly setup as well. Specifically, do want to focus on the 3 most recent weekly candles here. Very nice bullish upside candle broken above the 12 and 26. The following candle, and that's actually a little bit bearish. If we go ahead and zoom in, you can see a little bit of a spinning top doji here, and we were maintaining support on top of 26 after breaking above it and forming a close, but also getting stuck up at this 50-period exponential moving average as well. But very nice break on the current candle with just under 3 days left. So very nice kickoff of this 26-period EMA as support, confirming that. Nice volume coming in, still got a couple of days left until the candle closes, so do expect a little bit more upside there. And then obviously want to look out and talk about the big upside resistance on the candle here, about 1086. So that's right in line with the big resistance zones that we talked about. So pretty much we know once again that that's going to be a struggle point. But the thing that's going to work in our favor is that right now we are working on these weekly exponential moving averages, getting extremely close together, and we already have confirmed them as support. So hopefully they will continue to do so, provide that nice support as we do get closer and closer and closer to this 1086 resistance point. And like we talked about, with a lot more bullish volume coming in and the rest of the crypto space being extremely bullish and a lot more sentiment and euphoria coming in, shouldn't see the bulls have a problem there in that instance, and would definitely be looking to reclaim all of those levels, especially as we do look to flip these exponential moving averages on the weekly. Now, the good thing about the exponential moving average setup on the weekly here too for ICP is that unlike a lot of other altcoins, we actually saw the gap between all of these exponential moving averages remain relatively close together. So that's definitely a very good sign as well, because we don't have a lot of work to do to actually flip those back into a full bullish formation. And so we're actually looking at that happening pretty soon, because even though this is the weekly chart and it takes a weekly candle to play out, we know that the setup is going to happen a lot quicker than a lot of other altcoins, which will put ICP back in a much stronger setup and formation. So looking at the technical indicators here for ICP on the weekly, just extremely bullish looking, and looking at the relative strength index first. So as you can see, once we lost this trend here where we actually did put in a lower high after putting in higher highs on this chart, did lose support of this RSI exponential moving average here, which is the yellow line here. And so pretty much this is a guide just like it is for the candles. And once we actually pull above it, that does mean the trend is strengthening or losing strength and actually weakening a little bit here to the downside. So path of least resistance to the downside. And then once we had this nice bullish cross here, we did kick back, but maintained a higher low. So even though we haven't necessarily fully broke it pretty much until about September, the fact that we were getting multiple quicker tests and attempts to break this RSI exponential moving average just shows a lot of strength as well. And that does happen as we do continue to run up into these exponential moving averages. So now to finally break it, maintain higher lows on this RSI, and now see the path of least resistance heading back to the upside because we're well above the exponential moving average for the RSI. Great sign and setup here for the RSI for internet computer, especially with the RSI looking at 54.91 right now. So plenty of room before we even get anywhere close to being overextended above the 70 line on this weekly chart. And now I want to look at stochastic RSI, so the relative strength index for the stochastic. So do want to go ahead and talk about, again, this trend had a nice upside. And then obviously once we did have our peak coming in, lost a lot of momentum, which is kind of why this rolled over. And so typically when we do see this at the bottom, if we haven't had a significant price pullback, that does mean a slowing down and a weakening trend. And so that's exactly what happened where we did get the pullback. The stochastic RSI remained well below this 20 line here. But like we mentioned, pretty much back during the summer is when we started to get this flip and cross. And then we did start to see the trend showing a little bit more strength and weakening to the downside. So for example, if we actually looked at the last time where we were seeing the stochastic and signal lines this far above the 80 line here, which is kind of like the current setup that we're looking at right now, that was pretty much right when we were claiming support on top of these exponential moving averages like we're doing on the current setup. And that led to a very nice upside rally as well. And that's where we saw just a lot of this bullish volume coming in as the price just absolutely exploded up above the $21 level. Now, next, do want to talk about the MACD, moving average convergence and divergence here, and just talk about a very nice setup because even though we have been more or less flat since the summer here, we are looking at a very nice bullish cross. And although we haven't necessarily seen this MACD take off at all, we know that the strength is growing, especially since we are in a bullish setup here on the MACD with the MACD on top of this signal line, as well as growing bars on the histogram after coming off of a big pullback here on the histogram bars. So seeing the strength come back to the zero line for the histogram, showing a lot more of that signs of sell-off slowing down. And so right now, once we know that we have confirmed longer term support for so long and the downside has stopped, that's when we know we can resume this uptrend, just like the MACD is hinting here. So we're going to keep looking for pretty much the same setup. And so looking left here too, we can see that pretty much the same level that we were at back then is kind of where we were in the fall of last year here before we actually had our very nice explosive rally into the winter and early part of the spring last year before we did put in our trend high. So yeah, super nice and good bullish setup right now for Internet Computer, expecting a lot more follow through. We know that we are going to be looking for probably a little bit of pullback here eventually at some point for crypto, especially as Bitcoin does eye the $100,000 level. And a lot of other altcoins are starting to look a little bit overbought as well. But we know that alt season is just around the corner, so we could see Bitcoin actually retrace here and have a big explosive move for altcoin. So we will stay tuned and stay updated. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel for more updates, and also make sure you are following over on Twitter or X at coin_trades. But otherwise, that is going to go ahead and wrap up the show for today on ICP, Internet Computer, ICP on that ticker. Make sure to hit the thumbs up like button if you haven't done so just yet, and make sure to drop a comment, questions, disagreements, all that stuff down below. Do love getting back to each and every one of you. That's going to wrap it up for now, though, so stay safe, take care. Thanks for all the support once again, and I'll catch you back in the next video.